Yeah, welcome everybody. And good to be back. I haven't done a tech talk in a good couple of weeks, so I'm very glad to be back. And this morning, as you can see, I'm not going to waffle. We're going to talk about the rollout or the introduction of the PIRB business registration or company registration program, and we're gonna go through it in a little bit of detail. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions at the end, so we'll get through the presentation as quickly as possible. Please feel free to jump in and elaborate on stuff that I say and stuff that I might not have said, etc. I know that this is, well, it's a new concept, or it's a new rollout plan by the PIRB, and we need to kind of wrap our minds around it, exactly why it's happening. So we'll look at the 3 phases of rollout. Guys, it's not like such a rigid construct as to be. It's exactly 3 phases, and this is what's going to. That's nothing. The thing is that it takes time to get these things up and running, as you'll see, and so it's been kind of just split into 3 phases, and we've identified 3 things that should be done. I beg your pardon. This is going to on an auto click thing. Should be done in stages. So we'll look at the 3 phases. And then we'll look at a more detailed description of what phase 1 is, because phase 1 is at the moment very soon to be rolled out. Okay, so phase 1 is the registration of the companies and the enabling of the search function. And we're going to get into this, guys. We will talk about it. I'll explain these concepts, but that's phase 1. So the companies will begin to register, and the search function for Mrs. Jones out there will start to become available. In other words, Mrs. Jones can search for a company, but we'll get into that. We'll get into it. Then phase 2 will start to incorporate the performance ratings of the companies in the search results, including CPD performances from the registered plumbers. Right? That's phase 2. Phase 3 will then be exactly the same as 2, except for the fact that now, in addition to the CPD and all the rest, the audit performance matrix is going to be incorporated into the search results for Mrs. Jones. Okay, so I don't want to break even my own mind about this right now. Those are the 3 phases, guys, on a very high level sort of overview. Now we're going to look at what phase 1, and I'm hoping that through the next 3 or 4 slides, you will understand what phase 1 is, what phase 2 is, and what phase 3 is in a little bit more depth. Okay, so the purpose of this company registration rollout program is because PIRB has identified the fact that there's a need to reach the consumer. Okay. It's all very good and well reaching people that are affiliated with the plumbing industry, and everybody within the industry know who the PIRB is, but the consumer out there doesn't, and they don't know what the function is. So there's but it's an incredibly expensive thing to do. I mean, think of the marketing budget of Coca-Cola, for example. I mean, how many billions of dollars has it taken them to get everybody to know about Coke? So it's an incredibly expensive thing to do, to market to millions of people rather than to market to thousands of people. Okay, so that's the prohibiting factor. In any event, one of the things that PIRB has embarked upon is, in fact, a focus to bring the consumer into the fray, so to speak, so that they are included, well, that they are more aware of what the story is. Consumers, by default, will always be, not always, but 9 times out of 10, they'll be dealing with a company, right, rather than an individual. I mean, if I'm Mrs. Jones and I want to go look for a drain unblocking specialist because my drain's blocked, it's raining today in Cape Town, so now what's happening? So I'm not going to go and look for Richard Bailey. She doesn't know who Richard Bailey is. She's going to go and look for ABC drain busters or something like that. You know, she's going to go and search for drain busters, and then that is how they interact. That's how consumers interact with the plumbing industry per se. So the PIRB has recognized that and said, okay, well, currently in the system that we've got, unfortunately, Mrs. Jones can't find Richard Bailey or Joe Soap by searching their company. They can't find a drain cleaner by searching drain cleaner who has a PIRB registered plumber working for them, or whatever the case may be. So they have recognized that fact and are now wanting to introduce a search function where Mrs. Johnson go and say, I want a drain cleaner. Boom, there's a list of drain cleaning companies that that are registered or that have employees or that the owners are registered with the PIRB. So now that's the key. The consumer now can search for companies rather than individuals. Okay. Important thing to note is it's not going to affect the abilities or any kind of performance, anything to do with the individual registered plumber. It's not going to change that at all. Companies are encouraged to update their details. So if a client searches, for example, as I said, a leak detector or a drain cleaner, they can see you. Okay, so the client can go and search on the PIRB database and they can see you under a specialized service or just however the search results come up, and we're going to discuss that in a minute. So the company, once they've registered, are able to do the following. They can purchase and allocate CSCs. So they can go, ABC plumbing services can go and purchase COCs. Obviously, the system knows who the registered plumber is within ABC Plumbing Services, and so ABC can go and purchase plumbing, the COCs, and they can allocate those COCs on the system. They've got to allocate them. It's not that they're not just floating in the air. They've got to be allocated to a particular plumber. They can monitor the status of all employed registered plumbers. In other words, they can monitor what the CPD activities are of that particular plumber. They can monitor and keep track of the COC activity, how many are allocated, where they've been logged, under which addresses, etc. What are they for? And then they can also monitor the audit and refix statuses of those particular plumbers, right? One thing that they cannot do as a company is log that COC. That COC is still essentially belongs to the individual plumber, as always, and only that plumber may log that COC. So the company can purchase them, they can allocate them, but they cannot log them. So effectively, what we're saying is that what PIRB is saying is that you can pretty much take the burden away from the plumber, but you can't take over his role. All right, so that's the story. So an important thing to know is that
Richard, just to punch in there, sorry to jump in, but I think it's also come from a request from the owners of the plumbing companies, because again, like you were saying there earlier, is that they've got to arrange for funds for the plumber to go and buy COCs and everything else that goes with it. So it becomes a bit of a botheration factor in terms of that. So again, we've had many requests with regards to how that can be achieved and done, and that's exactly where this is now. Also, in terms of what you were saying with regards to how the refixes are done. Currently, at the moment, it's only the plumber that gets the refix notices or anything else. So, and maybe when there's an issue, then the company gets involved. So it's just trying to make and streamline the process a hell of a lot easier in terms of making this, creating the awareness and letting that consumer be able to take the choice of using a company that employs licensed plumbers.
Yeah, because what we found often, Steve, and you'll agree, is that, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is unfortunately just human nature. So what happens is that the plumber is requested or required by the company that he's employed with to issue the COC on the work that he does. Fair and well, all good. Then a refix comes along, and now who knows whether he's acted and plumbed and installed that according to instruction from the company or not. I don't know, but he's doing it within the construct of the company. Now the refix comes along, and the company's saying, "Hey, buddy, you know what? You just figure it out. I mean, you wrote the COC. Now you figure it out." Now the poor oak is left. What does he do? So we've, and that's not fair, hey, Steve. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that the whole process now incorporates. Well, it can, if you choose to, it can incorporate the company from the get-go, except for the logging of the COC. So it allows for the shifting of responsibility, if you want to put it that way, I guess, a little bit of that going on to, you know, so that the guys can help the oaks on the ground.
Yeah, and I think what it does, Richard, you know, from what we've been looking at and how we've been doing it, I think it closes the link in terms of, again, I've had some employers phone me and say, well, you know, there's the guy's, you know, possibly going to be suspended because he hasn't conducted the refixes, etc. But and they weren't even aware of it, you know, in terms of that. We've had situations where the plumber, who exactly as you've described, has conducted the work and then he left, you know, within that week or month or whatever. And then, you know, the refix wasn't completed. It was followed under the instructions of the company. The plumber followed his instructions as he's obliged to do. And then he also carries the can. So it's about a little bit about accountability. And I think, you know, the key thing is that we're just trying to make the system better, open up those lines of communication. And as I have, and you have, and the PIRB office has, is that when people are phoning in and saying, I need a plumber here, we cannot identify a company in terms of that. So I think it's a double-edged sword in terms of closing that loop with regards to the communication to the consumer and creating that awareness. So again, it's going to take a bit of time to get this up and running. And I think the key thing here is that it's voluntary. You know, as the company, you don't have to do it. But I think, you know, with this process here, is that you would see the benefits and, you know, hopefully look at it from that point of view of another search engine and an opportunity for the company to be able to obtain further work based on their support and engaging and employing licensed plumbers.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%, Steve. And just following on from that, a key point is that you mentioned that it's voluntary, but it's also free. There's no cost to the registration process. All it is you just simply update your profile, your company profile accordingly, and then you know then you will be, for all intents and purposes, the company that you register will be listed on the database, and Mrs. Jones will be able to search for that company rather than, and the company's results will come up rather than anything else. So if there is any kind of help and guidance, and of course, and there will be. I mean, they will. You know, it's a new thing. We all kind of have to adjust to things, and there's help, there's support, there's all kinds of, you know, the PIRB will furnish us all with the help and support that we need. So just to elaborate a little bit more on the phases. Okay, so how does a consumer search? Searches for, well, PIRB registered or PIRB companies that have PIRB registered plumbers working for them. So initially during phase one, those search results are going to come back alphabetically. That's just the way it is, because nothing else is going to be incorporated. Now, remember when I said back in the beginning of the presentation that phases 2 and 3 are going to incorporate various performance criteria or performance matrices? Well, that's where that then comes in. So during the later phases 2 and 3, and guys, just by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, the phases that we're talking about are like 3 months apart, right? So it's not like 6 years. It's phase 1, and then in about roughly 3 months time is going to be a rollout of phase 2, and then in roughly 3 months time again is going to be a rollout of phase 3. So that's the sort of the time scale.
Yeah,
so
I think it's like anything else. You know, Richard, is that, you know, if we could just do a great download of everybody else. But I mean, as we've said, this is voluntary. It's going to take some time for the individual, the companies rather, to get their registration up and running, get it on there. And then, you know, once that's there, it's all very well having a website, and if there's nothing on it. So it's to be able to build that. And the first point of departure is getting the support from the plumbing companies that employ licensed plumbers to be able to see the value. And again, it might not be just after one sort of webinar that everybody goes out and says, I'm going to go and do this. But I think in today's market, and we see it all over, is that, you know, we just got to try and find that extra, you know, if it's 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls a month, while every sort of drop fills a bucket. So again, there are going to be some individuals that are going to be pro. There are going to be some that are going to say, I'm going to wait. But therefore, the reason for the 3 months, getting that data up and running, and then starting that rollout. So yes, it is going to be phased in, and gives us the opportunity to possibly market more, maybe explain more. We may not have all the answers to questions, But yeah, I'm sure we'll have a few things that come up that we need to relook at, and there'll be some great ideas coming from those companies saying, well, what about this? So we've got a plan, and we're going to move forward with it. And it's just, as I say, free, voluntary, and it's that buy-in, and again, maybe just accountability. I know the plumber is the individual who signs that COC when he logs it, so he is responsible. But I think it's just trying to knit the two together between the plumber and the company, and get that communication going.
Yeah, no, 100%. And those you mentioned the two key points: the fact that it is free and that it is voluntary. You can choose not to be. You can choose not to register. It's absolutely up to you. It's not a compulsory thing by any shape or stretch of the imagination. And then lastly, the PIRB will be producing a sort of insignia, badges, or however, whatever shape it's going to take in terms of stickers or whatever, that a company now can use to advertise and to market the fact that they are registered on the PIRB database and that they are searchable on that PIRB database. It won't be exactly the same as the current PIRB logo, because, well, not logo, I beg your pardon, but the sticker that, proud PIRB plumber, because that is for the individual plumber. Nothing changes. So it's not all of a sudden that the individual plumber is relinquishing his sort of status to his company, and now the company is bearing his status. That's not the case. That's a completely different insignia. So it's an insignia that's going to be developed to show that this particular ABC Drain Busters is in fact searchable and registered on the PIRB database. So it's not the same, but you get what I'm saying. It's an ability for the company then to advertise and put on their vans and put on their website, and etc., to say, hey, search for us here, and that'll be sort of a nice little touch as well.
Yeah. Okay. For that, just as we're going through there, and again, and I'm sure there are those that are in attendance today where they've received a letter from PIRB, stating, please remove the logo from your letterheads or whatever. And this has been a bone of contention, again, at board meetings that we've had, where we're saying, the company is proud of the fact that they have a licensed plumber. But unfortunately, the perception is that everybody in that company is a licensed plumber, where they only have one, and they've got 10 teams or whatever the case may be. So that really was a bone of contention. And I know it did upset a couple of guys because they were quite proud of the fact that they were. And that's why, in terms of this inception, is to be able to do it in a way that there's accountability. The company is recognized for what they're doing, where it be, supporter of whatever that logo is going to be. But I think the key point is that you can see in a lot of advertising and marketing, from Facebooks to advertising out there, is that logo is on trucks. It is out there, and the guys are proud that they are a part of it. But again, as we know, with PIRB, it is centered around the licensed plumber. And let's not forget that that's what the mandate is in terms of SAQA, is that we have the mandate to register, to monitor the plumber. So this is not going to change anything in terms of that. This is just, again, coming out to bolt on that for any company that so chooses to be a part of this. It doesn't change our mandate. We can't go and hammer the company or whatever the case may be. But again, it's just to basically say, let's engage a little bit more, give that opportunity to companies to initiate further training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, we'll have a couple of questions, but I don't see it as being a negative. I think when people look at IOPSA and they look at PIRB, I think the one thing is this is not an opposition to IOPSA. It's not a opposition to anybody. It's basically freedom of choice. If you would like to register your company on there, you reap the benefits or we don't. I mean, it's unknown territory in terms of where we're going, but we'll never know unless we try. And I think it's listening to companies that's actually started this process in terms of where we are.
Yeah, and another thing, Steve, is the fact that in phases 2 and 3, etc., the performance matrices are going to start coming to play when that affect search results. In other words, the best performing companies are going to land up in the upper tiers of the search results. In other words, all their plumbers are the CPDs up to date, the refixes have been done, or audits have been passed or whatever. But all those things come in play, and that creates an incentive for the company as well to assist the plumber, the registered plumber, for example, in his CPD activities. So it all comes back to, as you said, and you said it, sort of accountability. And you know, if you're running a company and you want, you know, you want to be displayed and on this database quite high up, and it matters whether or not your registered plumber or plumbers are able to get the time to do CPD. For example, if it's a CPD activity that has to be done during office hours, for example, maybe, you know, you've been in the past reluctant to give him 2 hours off. Now you give him 2 hours to go and fulfill that, or whatever the case may be. You know, the point is that there's a transparency involved now, and companies are able to become actively involved in the performance of their plumbers, which affect in turn the performance of the company in this rating system. So it's an all-round win-win, kind of rub my back, I'll rub your back, between employer and employee, and that to me is a positive. And at the end of the day, you know what? If a company says that's just too much effort for me, it's a voluntary. You don't have to do it. I mean, it would be. I mean, it is beneficial for the guys. So yeah.
But I think also, Richard, I think you know, if I take, for example, yesterday I was up in Benito. Yesterday we organised some training up there for installers. So we all know that the licensed plumber, you know, he signs a COC, but most of the time the work's actually being done by the operators, technicians, or whatever the case may be. And again, it was really good to see, you know, the PIRB and IOPSA companies, you know, giving time off to the employees yesterday. We had 18 in the room yesterday. And again, it was just great in terms of the participation and the value that they get out of these particular things that we put together. I think in terms of the rating systems and the COCs, I think there was one question raised there. It'll be great for big business. But I mean, you know, again, in terms of that performance, if you're the licensed plumber and you are the owner of that company and you're doing the work and you're overseeing it, I mean, your ratings would work out exactly the same. So again, it's, you know, you've got a swings and roundabouts. You could have one guy who's really great and no issues, and you may have two other guys that are not performing as well. It brings down the sort of ratings or whatever you want to choose, and you can have those shared or not. I mean, it's up to you in terms of again, your CV, if you want to go and have a look at it, if you're pricing a job or whatever. So it's again a choice that you can have. But I think for those guys that are out there doing the work very well, again, it would be an added bonus in terms of, you know, we keep hearing companies how great they are, but these stats would basically substantiate that claim, yes or no. So yeah, there'll be some learning curves, but all in all, I think what we can do to try and generate an assistant guide is better than doing nothing.
Yeah, 100%. We'd like to acknowledge and thank the supporters of the process and the supporters of the vision, and that realize, you know, what PIRB is there for and what they're trying to achieve. So a big thank you for the continued support. And hopefully we can just build it up and make it better and better as the years go by.